Soul Land Episode 157 Original Novel DouLuo DaLu. Chapter 190. The Palace Gate, Alarming Change, Enemy Shadows Appear. TL by Piggy Bottle. DouLuo's words shocked everyone in the small office, excluding Xiao Wu. Emperor Shuiye was not going to make it. At this moment, the uneasiness in Tang San's heart finally found its reason. He had finally understood why there was the feeling of an emergency in his heart. It was the atmosphere. Those soldiers he met in Heaven Do City were exuding an austere aura. Being the emperor of one of the two great nations, if Emperor Shuiye were to pass away, then all the continent would undergo earth-shaking amounts of change. This would also affect the secret coalition the Heaven Do Empire and the Star Luo Empire with each other. And the one who would benefit from this the most was without a doubt Spirit Hall. If in such a crucial moment, the Emperor of Heaven Do Empire were to pass, the empire would fall into a power struggle and no doubt their efforts mounted against Spirit Hall with great difficulty would come to a standstill. However, although a sense of danger abruptly emerged in Tang San's heart, it too quickly subsided as he calmed down. Old freak, what on earth is going on? Didn't you previously tell me the poison within Emperor Shuiye has been successfully controlled already? DouLuo bitterly laughed. The poison at that time was indeed successfully controlled by me. I used the poison of the Jade Phosphor Serpent Emperor to try to counter poison with poison, by allowing the two poisons to neutralize each other, then to use medicine to slowly deal with the lingering poison and side effects. But who would have known, the Emperor whose condition had already stabilized, a month ago suddenly had a relapse. What's more, the reaction this time was much more violent. I carefully examined his blood, before I found out that the poison in his blood was constantly evolving, and it was evolving at a very fast pace. Although I could use my Phosphorus Emperor Snake's poison to counter the poison within his body, but after each time I had neutralized the poison, before too long a new kind of poison would appear. Each time the poison would become even stronger. I have already calculated, after the 7th time I use this method to neutralize the poison in Emperor Shuiye's body, the poison will once again relapse and it would take his life, with no chance to rescue him then. That is why, unless there is no other way left, I don't even dare to try this method anymore. Dazzling brilliance burst out of Tang San's eyes. Then how many times have you used this method? With a solemn look, DouLuo said, I have used it 6 times. I only use it when his body can no longer take the effects of the poison, but each time the time between the relapses also shortens. Tang San took a deep breath. If I guess correctly, the poison Emperor Shuiye is afflicted with is not a simple concocted poison, but a complex poison concocted by mixing many poisons. Such a poison would have an extremely potent effect with a myriad of symptoms. You can even say, everyone who knew how to mix poisons will also end up with different poisons. And amongst them, this kind of multi-poison mix is the hardest to deal with. If we want to purge this poison, then we first need to find the source. The multi-poison mix is especially hard to identify, and if we cannot find it, then we will not be able to find a remedy, nor will we be able to treat it. This time there really is huge trouble. DouLuo anxiously said, Enough of this chit-chat, hurry and come with me to the Heaven Do Imperial Palace. If even you don't have a solution, then there will be a revolution in Heaven Do Empire. Tang San, as if suddenly remembering something, said, Hold on a moment, let us go pick someone up and bring him along with us. To identify a multi-poison mix, the more people we have the better. DouLuo was slightly shocked when he said, What? You still know someone who is good with poisons? Tang San said, Let's go, I'll explain on the way. Grand Master, Dean Flender, we shall take our leave first. Fatty, you wait here for Rong and Oscar. If a revolution really occurs here in Heaven Do Empire, then our plans would also have to change. Tang San brought Xiaowu and DouLuo away from the Shrek Academy together. On the way back to the Tang sect, Tang San told DouLuo about his establishment of the Tang sect in brief. And the person he was going to find was without a doubt, the leader of the Breaking Clan, Yang Wudi. Although Tang San had not had the chance to study things regarding herbs with this medicine master, since Yang Wudi was able to identify the aromatic silk beauty immortal treasure and the yearning heartbroken red, these two divine herbs, Tang San could tell that in the field of medicine, Yang Wudi was actually superior to the poison DouLuo, and perhaps even not inferior to himself. Although DouLuo was the poison DouLuo, most of his poison originated from his spirit, and not from his understanding of medicine like Tang San and Yang Wudi. As time was of the essence and Ning Rongrong was not around, the three of them, after returning to the Tang sect, had no choice but to bring Xiaowu along as well to the royal chambers. By his side was a title DouLuo, thus Tang San did not have to worry about the safety of Xiaowu. Even if anything happened in the royal chambers, given the strength of the three of them, protecting Xiaowu was no problem. Dougubo and Yang Wudi had never met before. At first Dougubo even had some contempt towards Yang Wudi, but on the way to the royal chambers, while he was explaining the symptoms on Emperor Shuiyat, Yang Wudi raised many valuable points which made him no longer dare to look down on the Tang sect medicine hall master. As the Heaven Do Imperial Palace came within sight, Dougubo told Tang San, "Little San, regardless of how things turn out this time, you can consider me a part of your Tang sect. The position of your sect's medicine hall master is not of interest to me, but I ought to qualify as a sect elder, right?" Tang San laughingly replied, "Of course you do. How can I possibly stop you? But, aren't you the kind that likes to be free and unwilling to join any sect?" Dougubo snorted. "Is this Tang sect not yours? Could it be that you are still biased against me?" Speaking up to here, he lightly sighed, "It is true that I like to be free, but that is a matter of the past. I am already getting old. Wanting to enter back into the spirit hall is also pretty much impossible at this point. I'll use your Tang sect for my retirement. Anyway, it's fine as long as you see to my food and drink. Call me if there's any excitement like fighting and killing." Yang Wudi, who was traveling with them, had his usual cold look, but inwardly he was shocked. From the names that Tang San and Dougubo used to address each other, he could tell that their relationship was not simple. As a title DouLuo, Dougubo was speaking to Tang San as an equal and without the slightest bit of hypocrisy and surprisingly straightforward. For Yang Wudi, during his whole life, other than training, he would research medicines, and as such naturally heard about the great fame of the poison DouLuo. His original impression of Dougubo was that of a jade phosphor serpent emperor, an extremely venomous snake. But from today's observation, he did not even give off the slightest cold demeanor. How could Yang Wudi know that his original impression of Dougubo is not wrong, but it was just that when Dougubo was with Tang San his character would greatly change. In these many years, it could be said that Tang San was his only friend, that's right, a friend that he could confide in and not a junior. Tang San smilingly said, "You didn't have to put it so bleakly, as long as you are willing, I can take care of you." He didn't say that Tang sect would take care of Dougubo's retirement as, after all, the Tang sect belonged to him. Dougubo laughed to cover up his emotions, but Yang Wudi, quietly observing by the side, could still see the gratitude deep in his eyes. Upon entering the palace, with Dougubo's presence, the four of them did not face any resistance. Dougubo was a distinguished guest of the Heaven Do imperial family, and had great authority here. He brought the trio to the chambers of Emperor Shuiyat. Only upon reaching here were they stopped. Soldiers clad in black armor and wielding spears stood in everyone's way. Dougubo took out his special golden VIP token, "Move aside, we have urgent matters to attend to with His Majesty." The soldier captain coldly said, "The Emperor is resting. Under the Crown Prince's orders, none is allowed to enter. Anyone who disobeys will be killed without pardon." Dougubo froze for a moment. "Do you not see what is written on this golden tablet?" Written on the tablet were the two words, "Honorable Guest," representing that the holder was akin to Emperor Shuiyi's personal guest. The soldier captains looked like he was deeply contemplating, yet did not show any signs of standing aside. Tang San lips moved, directing his voice towards Dougubo, asking, "Have you seen these soldiers before?" Dougubo shook his head, "All of them are unfamiliar." Tang San heart trembled, "I fear things are taking a turn for the worst. If my judgment is correct, Emperor Shuiyi was poisoned by Xue Qinghe. He probably got wind of you coming to find me. After all, Xue Qinghe is Uncle Ning's disciple, so he probably knows that I am good with poison. He definitely wants to avoid having the two of us treat Emperor Shuiyi's poison together." Dougubo frowned, "That can't be right, can it? After all, he is still Shuiyi's son." Tang San coldly laughed, "If he still remembers Emperor Shuiyi as his own father, then he would not have done this. Regardless of whether our guess is right or wrong, let's first save Emperor Shuiyi. If not, then our guess would not matter anyway." Dougubo somewhat taken aback, "You mean to?" Tang San's face revealed a hint of a smile. Without answering Dougubo, he walked forward, withdrawing a golden tablet from his 24 moonlight bridges. "Senior Dougubo's tablet was not enough for us to enter, but what about this tablet of mine?" The tablet that Tang San took out was the tablet that Xue Qinghe had previously given him. The design on the tablet was slightly different. The soldier captain froze for a moment, looking at the golden tablet in Tang San's hand in shock. When he had initially received the orders, it was to not allow Dougubo into the Emperor's chambers, but now, the person coming with him was holding onto the Crown Prince's golden tablet. Just what was going on? Tang San walked a few more steps, speaking in a serious tone, the situation has changed, the crown prince changed his mind. Hurry up and let us in. These golden tablets were equivalent to their owner's orders itself. With Tang San holding the prince's golden tablet, although there was doubt in their hearts, the captain did not dare disobey and raised his hand to indicate to all the soldiers to let them pass. With this move from the soldiers, Tang San and DouLuo's expression greatly changed. They previously did not notice, but the spirit fluctuations released by these soldiers shocked them greatly. This was not a group of Heaven Do Empire Imperial Guards, rather this was clearly a squadron comprised of spirit masters. There was a whole 50 spirit masters here, and from their spirit fluctuations they were all no less than rank 50. Tang San had some regret. He did not regret coming here with DouLuo, but rather, he regretted bringing Xiaowu along. He could not bear to put Xiaowu who had regained her human form into the wishful 100 treasures purse. But if the situation were to worsen, for Xiaowu's safety, this was all he could do. DouLuo never expected that Tang San would be able to pull out such a tablet, but this was not the time to talk about it, so he and Yang Wudi hurried and followed Tang San to enter the emperor's chambers. At this moment, a leisurely and pleasant male voice rang out, "So Tang Yin is actually Tang San, to think I actually made a mistake when I was at the Moon Pavilion. Brother Tang San, I really never imagined that your appearance and temperament would change so much. We pay our respects to your highness." The surrounding soldiers all knelt down uniformly, while Tang San pulled Xiaowu and slowly turned around. Shueking he only brought 2 people along, slowly walking in their direction. He looked just as handsome as before, and as sincere as before, still giving people the feeling of being very approachable. But for some reason, after meeting him today, Tang San could also feel some coldness from him. Following behind Shueking he were 2 old men. They were not dressed in royal garments but rather normal commoner clothes. From these 2 people, although Tang San could not see anything special, he could feel DouLuo beside him suddenly become tense. What could cause the title DouLuo beside him to show such a change? Tang San had already formed a judgment of the 2 old man's abilities. "Hello, your highness." Tang San bowed slightly to Shueking he. Shueking he walked to about 5 meters away from Tang San and company, sighing he said, "Brother Tang San, frankly speaking, I have not been so good recently, my father has been ill, there has been trouble inside and outside the palace." Uncle and 4th brother took this opportunity to make their moves. "Ah! I have been very sad. Brother Tang San, what brings you here to visit father? Why didn't you just come and tell me, it would have been so much easier for me to bring you in." "Oh, that's right, Shueke has missed you dearly, after you unfortunately disappeared. Shueke is my only sister, you know, my dearest sister. Tang San, you better not let down her kindness." Tang San smiled indifferently, saying, "I thank your highness for your kind works. In my life I may come across many good things, but I can only take care of one. With Xiaowu, I already do not have any more regrets. Your highness, Senior DouLuo brought me here today is specifically to take a look at His Majesty's poison. Could you first let us go inside to treat His Majesty?" Shueking he's facial expression slightly changed, as he softly said, "Regarding my father, you don't have to trouble yourself. Since you finally visited this palace, why not let us sit down and catch up?" Tang San calmly looked at Shueking he, suddenly sighing a long sigh. It would seem that the people guarding here are all from the spirit hall. "Your highness." This time, Shueking he's expression finally changed. "Tang San, what rubbish are you speaking of? This place is the Heaven Do Empire's palace, a forbidden place. How can people from Spirit Hall possibly be here?" Tang San put Xiaowu's hand into the wishful 100 treasure purse. Inserting a little spirit power into the purse, there was a flash and Xiaowu disappeared. This was the greatest benefit of the wishful 100 treasure purse, it could store living things. Although he did not like it, but in order to protect Xiaowu, Tang San had no choice but to do this. "Your highness, you made a few mistakes. In the Heaven Do Empire there are quite many spirit masters. But, even so there are only a few title DouLuo. But given Emperor Shuiyi's status, how could these title DouLuo be not protecting him but rather appear by your side, let alone 2 of them? Are these title DouLuos so cheap? To be able to dispatch 2 title DouLuos, in this continent there are only a few. Spirit Hall happens to be the strongest one capable of doing so. This is the first mistake. Secondly, you changed all the guards here to spirit masters, is it really to protect His Majesty? I don't think so, you are just using them to prevent any other people from getting close. What's more, all the spirit masters in the empire are being trained by my teacher. I just came from Shrek Academy. If the Heaven Do Empire really needed dozens of spirit masters who were not at all weak to protect the palace, did you think teacher would not tell me? Thirdly, when your highness saw me, you immediately knew that I was Tang San. Even though the tablet in my hand was yours, but I could also possibly have been given to me by someone else. That is why when you first saw me, you should have asked Tang Ying, how did you get this tablet, and not immediately called my name. That is why I am certain, you have a relation with Spirit Hall, which is how you got hold of information about me, finding out that Tang Ying is actually Tang San, and not because you recognized me from the tablet in my hand. After saying so much, more simply put is the fact that you appeared heavily guarded inside the palace, while letting out so much cold-killing intent, should be enough to prove that the one who poisoned the emperor is you. Even if it is just speculation, I believe that I am already pretty much on the dot. The only thing that I do not understand is, are you really so heartless? To do such a thing to your own father. The position of emperor sure is good, but he still is your father after all. After listening to Tang San make his second point, Xue Qinghe's face was already pale, while listening to Tang San finish, he had actually calmed down. Clap clap clap, Xue Qinghe clapped his hands, very good, nothing less from one of the Shrek 7 devils. From all these small clues you can guess so much. But how are you going to prove this guess? Tang San smiled, very simple, as long as you let me enter and have a look at His Majesty. The truth will naturally reveal itself. But I am guessing that no matter what, you will not be willing to let me enter. His Majesty has already been poisoned, as long as this time he dies from the poison, you will naturally be absolved of all the evidence, and the position as the Heaven Do Empire's Emperor. How would you possibly allow me to approach His Majesty and allow the possibility of developments which ruin your plan? Tang San, you know, you are even smarter than I thought. Xue Qinghe's eyes revealed a look of sincerity. You guessed it right, this time I indeed borrowed the power of the Spirit Hall. But this was also because I had no other choice. Second uncle and fourth brother were already eyeing the throne. If I did not do this, after father passed away, there would certainly be an internal power struggle, which I am certain we all do not want to see. Why don't you stay with me in the kingdom? With your ability, you can be my right-hand man. Money, women, power, even if you want spirit rings or spirit bones, I can give all these to you. Your intellect is more frightening than your fighting powers, I need people like you to help me build Heaven Do Empire. Tang San laughed, but you could see contempt in his smile. Xue Qinghe, did you think that I would join forces with someone who tried to usurp the throne by killing his own father? If in order to fulfill your goal you can kill even your father, what is there that you cannot do? I really am very doubtful as to whether you really are Emperor Shui's son in the end. Xue Qinghe did not get angry at Tang San's words, rather his eyes revealed some regret, such a pity that a genius like you will have to be killed here. Tang San, you are so smart, but did you not know that if you said everything about me out like this, there is no way I can let you go? Why do you want to go through all this trouble? Tang San smiled, with a fearless look said, Your Highness, a person like you would naturally never understand why I would do something like this. Actually, in everyone's heart there are many good things and many dirty secrets, you have them and so do I. But, in everyone's hearts there are two monarchs managing them. And these two monarchs' names are morality and conscience. Only after passing through them will our hearts decide if we should carry out an action. Once these two monarchs in our hearts die, then the person can longer be considered a human, but rather just like you, a beast. Once he finished his words, an object was suddenly flung out behind Tang San's back, all the way towards the sky. Suddenly releasing a radiant red light along with a sharp whistling sound. Xue Qinghe could no longer keep his calm, do it. Tang San's voice at the same time reached Yang Wudi and Dugubo's ears, defensive formation, stay close, wait for reinforcements. The thing that he threw was his own special flare, produced by the Tang sect. Although this world had not discovered explosives, but the explosive making process was already clearly known to Tang San. He had long since experimented with simple explosives, this flare was one of his test products. Back then, the 7 treasure glazed tile school managed to avoid complete annihilation because of this. The two old men standing behind Xue Qinghe flashed ahead, rushing quickly towards the Tang trio, one of them rushed directly towards Dugubo, the other towards Tang San. While charging, dazzling lights combined with a huge spirit force exploded from them as 9 brilliant spirit rings appeared. Earlier when he felt DouLuo stiffen up, he could already confirm that these two old men before him were both title DouLuo level people. They must certainly be elders from Spirit Hall, although this was not his first time facing title DouLuos. Facing the combined pressure from two title DouLuos still left Tang San quite breathless. The surrounding guards from the Spirit Hall did not join in the action, rather they quickly encircled the Tang San trio. After a certain level, if low-level spirit masters were to join in the fray, they would only become hindrances to their side. To Shui Qinghe, having these two title DouLuo make their move was enough. The remaining spirit masters just had to stop Tang San from escaping. This was the first time Tang San took part in a duel of such level, but his battle experience was just too rich. Facing off against two title DouLuos, he wasn't qualified to stand on the front line, and moreover as a control-type spirit master, his forte lay in controlling the field. As such, he chose to retreat with his ghost shadow perplexing track, retreating 3 steps like a mirage. The two title DouLuo concurrently let out a slight expression of surprise, showing their surprise. For Tang San to take 3 steps back under the spirit force of two title DouLuos was not something simple to do. That pressure comparable to a tidal wave if not faced head-on, would overwhelm you in the process of retreating, greatly reducing your strength. But Tang San was unaffected. In the process of retreating, the had already released his Death God domain, cloaking himself, DouLuo and Yang Wudi in a white light, releasing them from the pressure and allowing him to use his ghost shadow perplexing track to retreat. DouLuo and Yang Wudi's actual battle experience was even greater, and did not need any verbal cues at all. Once Tang San retreated, the two of them instantly felt the stimulation from the coldness of the Death God domain, instantly stepped inwards in front of Tang San. Although Tang San was retreating, but what he did was more than the comrades who stood in front of him, other than supporting his side with the Death God domain, his mental powers were released to the surroundings. As a control-type spirit master, he had to be able to grasp the actions of every other spirit master in his perception. At the current time, although there are many enemies surrounding him, but the only ones that were a threat to him were the two title DouLuos standing in front of him. With the guidance of his mental power, Tang San's vision seemed to have expanded into every corner of the place, and everything around him seemed to be moving in slow motion, with 80% of his mental power focused onto the two title DouLuos. These two title DouLuo were at least about 80 years old, and were never met by Tang San before. The old man on the left side was around 2 meters tall, his slender body as straight and sharp as a javelin. After releasing his spirit, his body didn't change notably, but in his hand appeared a snake lance one. Close to 7 meters long, curved, the point forked like a snake's tongue, the whole lance completely purple. 2 yellow, 3 purple, 4 black, an alarming 9 spirit rings revolved around this snake lance. The impression this title DouLuo gave people was as if only that snake lance was shooting out, and not the person himself. It was no longer a simple combination of man and spear but rather gave off a real sense of fusion. Without having to deliberately do anything special, the snake lance and his body had already reached a terrifying synergy. Tool spirit title DouLuo were usually even more frightening than beast spirit title DouLuo. Didn't the Clear Sky clan by virtue of the spirit tool become hailed as the #1 sect in the world? This title DouLuo was facing directly in front of DouLuo, did not directly send his snake lance out, but rather held along his body at a slant, creating a blur behind him, giving off the feeling of being very illusory. The other title DouLuo had a more average build, not too fat or thin, with nothing special about him. But, after he released his spirit, his body swelled up like a balloon. With numerous purple spikes appearing all over his body, having the same spirit ring configuration as the previous title DouLuo. None dared to look down or despise him because of his looks. After releasing his spirit, the greater the change on the body, the greater the synergy between the spirit and spirit master, which also represented a higher grade spirit. Porcupine fish 2, this spirit master's spirit is the extremely rare porcupine fish, and moreover one that had been trained to the title DouLuo level. Tang San could clearly remember, Grand Master had told him about the existence of this special spirit master. The porcupine fish was an animal which could be found only in the oceans. When it came into contact with danger, it would swell its body up and use the spikes on its body to protect itself. The porcupine fish spirit master also had several abilities including the release of poisons, a strong body and the release of toxic spikes. The thing that Grand Master had described, the porcupine fish, was an extremely dangerous spirit, and if he were to ever encounter one, he had to be careful. Using his mental power to make a simple judgment, Tang San could feel that these two title DouLuo were both of higher rank than DouLuo. Naturally they also had higher combat power. Dugubo finally moved, taking in a low breath, he released his spirit. Green scales covered his entire body, his whole person, including his head all turned into the same color. Those scales which covered his whole body showed his strength as a title DouLuo. Poof, a layer of dense green gas gushed out of Dugubo's body, as if having eyes of its own ignored Tang San and Yang Yudi as it spread out in all directions. Even Tang San did not know that the title DouLuo standing beside him did not recognize the other two title DouLuos. Using poison to test waters had always been Dugubo's way of fighting. The sudden release of poison was naturally not meant to directly injure the two title DouLuos but rather to just probe their anti-poison abilities as well as deal with the other weaker spirit masters around. The poison DouLuo's poison was after all not something weak spirit masters could resist. However, a strange scene appeared. The snake lance DouLuo's snake lance which was originally pointing at Dugubo dropped to the floor, and his body which originally faced Dugubo changed directions. With a diagonal slash, the snake lance was once again pointing up but this time towards Yang Wudi. While the porcupine fish DouLuo after expanding his body stabbed the floor with his spiky hand and crossed over the snake lance DouLuo, taking in a breath of air, his third spirit ring shone and he sucked in all of the dark green gas released by Dugubo. After the terrifying poison had been absorbed into his body, the porcupine fish DouLuo's body exuded a green misty sheen, the originally purple spikes now had a layer of green in them, as if having transferred Dugubo's poison onto them. Shweking he smilingly said towards Dugubo, "Poison DouLuo, stop trying to resist, these two elders were specifically brought to deal with you. In front of them, your poison has no effect." Dugubo's expression changed due to the words of Shweking he, while the snake lance DouLuo had already reached Yang Wudi. The snake lance transformed into 9 shadows as it shot towards Yang Wudi. A black light, like that of a poison dragon flew out. Yang Wudi instead of retreating attacked. There was a flash in his eyes as his explosive spirit force burst forth. The opponent attacked 9 times, but he only struck once, without caring at all for defense. The soul-breaking spear flew out with all his momentum, striking straight towards the snake lance DouLuo. Shweking he had already guessed what he was going to do when he left the royal chambers, more specifically he already mostly guessed what Tang San and the others were going to do as well. The information he had far exceeded what Tang San had guessed. He was informed about even Tang San's actions against the Lord Spirit Hall in Geng Xin City. And it was also precisely because Dugubo was going to find Tang San that Shweking he decided to take such actions. Dugubo's specialty was poisons, but as Grand Master once said, there was not a single spirit master who could be invincible to all enemies. This was due to different compatibilities between spirits. Shweking he specifically brought these two title DouLuo. The porcupine fish DouLuo was brought specifically to deal with Dugubo. In addition, with the other title DouLuo and the large number of mid-level spirit masters, how could it not be enough to deal with Tang San and Dugubo? But, Shui Yeqing, still miscalculated slightly, that is the existence of Yang Wudi, the strongest patriarch of the 4 single attribute clans. One snake lance, something like http://i01.id.com/img/pb/720/815/386/386815720_708.jpg. 2 Porcupine fish, spiked suckling pig. The word specifically really refers to the slender-spined porcupine fish, Diodon nycthemerus, a member of the porcupine fish family Diodontidae, which are also called globefish or blowfish. Porcupine fish are closely related to the pufferfish Tetraodontidae family, one of the differences being that porcupine fish have external spines, whereas pufferfish spines are only visible when it's inflated. Finish it here. Subscribes, likes and comments. Goodbye.